If you have your word, please turn with me to the book of Luke. The book of Luke. We're going to be looking at Luke chapter 7. Luke chapter 7. And we're going to be looking at verses 11 through 17. Luke chapter 7, verses 11 through 17. Not a strange text. Some of you have heard this before. Luke 7, verses 11 through 17. All right, it reads as follows. It says, "And it came to pass the day after that he went into a city called Nan, and many of his disciples went with him, and much people. Then when he came nigh to the gate of the city, behold, there was a dead man carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. And much people of the city was with her. And when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her, and said unto her, Weep not. And he came and touched the bier, that they bare him stood still. And he said, Young man, I say unto thee, arise. And he that was dead sat up and began to speak. And he delivered him to his mother. And there came a fear on all, and they glorified God, saying that a great prophet is risen up among us, and that God hath visited his people. And this rumor of him went forth throughout all Judea and throughout all the region round about." Amen. If you are taking notes on today, I am coming from the topic, back from the dead. Back from the dead. Here in the text, we see something very, very interesting that takes place. Before all of this took place, just for me to give you the backdrop of what's going on, before this, Jesus was in the area, and there was a centurion who had a servant that was sick. He was very, very sick. And he needed Jesus to heal his servant. When word got to Jesus to heal this centurion's servant, Jesus was told that, no, you don't have to come to my house. You don't have to come up underneath my roof. All you have to do is speak a word, and I know that he will be healed. Jesus healed this centurion's servant. Jesus could not even believe the faith of this centurion, that he had enough faith in Jesus to heal his servant. So after all of this takes place is when we start at verse number 11, where it picks up at by us giving us the next scene in this story here. Jesus here, he comes to a place called Nan. Nan in the Greek, it means beauty. It means beauty. So Jesus is in this place called beauty, but yet when he sees what's happening, he sees something that's not so beautiful. The text says that he saw the widow mourning for the death of her only son. Her only son. And she was mourning his death. But yet at the same time, Jesus saw it. He wasn't oblivious to it. He did not turn his head in the other direction. He did not do an about face and go in the other direction. But yet, Jesus saw it. I told you all last week when we came from the message, Not Easily Broken, that when the woman, when she came into the synagogue or the church, when Jesus was teaching, Jesus saw the woman who was bent over for 18 years. She was in this condition for for 18 long years. And you know, from last week's message, I told you all that Jesus saw her and he did something about her situation. You see the same thing going today. Jesus, he sees what's happening. He sees this widow. She's mourning for her son. You see, I love God, Grace Center. I love the fact that when God sees something, he's able to do something with what he can see. So watch this now. Sometimes with us, we think that God does not see what we're going through. Same thing I mentioned last week, okay? So same kind of thread going through here. We think that we're the only ones. We think that it won't get better. We think that, this is the end. But when God sees something, he's able to do something about it. But yet we think that God does not even care, or he does not know or see it. But here we know that God is able to do something about what he can see. And thank God that when he sees something, he's able to do something about it. I would not serve a God that could not do something about my situations. I would not serve a God that if he sees something and see me struggling, see that I'm in need of something, that he turns his head and he goes in the opposite direction. That's not the kind of God that I serve. But yet I serve a God, you serve a God, hopefully, that when he sees your condition, when he sees your situation, he says, hey, I'm the one that can do something with what you are going through. Here in the text, we see that Jesus sees this widow woman mourning for the death of her son. And he decided to do something about it. Now, this is also interesting, Grace Center, because when we see in the text here, the widow does not ask Jesus to do anything. All right. Jesus is not asked to do anything. Unlike what took place first before he arrived here, when the centurion's servant needed healing, they asked for Jesus to heal him. But here, this widow woman does not ask Jesus to do anything. See, I love the fact that when you go to God, you can ask him to do certain things for you when you have a need. But there are certain times when you don't even have to say a thing. God just sees what's going on and he decides to get in there anyway. Oh, I love that kind of God. That's the kind of God that I serve. Jesus, he sees what is happening and yet he acts on what is going on. Jesus has compassion at what is taking place here. There's something else in the text that we need to look at and go a little bit deeper. Okay, we need to go a little bit deeper here. Where Jesus was at before, okay, to where he's at now in the text is about 25 miles apart. Okay, so from where he was at before when he healed and when they came to Jesus to heal the centurion's servant, to where he's at right now is about 25 miles apart. Why is that so significant, Pastor? Why are you explaining that? Well, I'm explaining that for this reason right here. You have to understand that back in those days, they did not have, cars to drive or airplanes and things like that. So they were either walking or on the back of a donkey, okay? So if it's 25 miles apart, think of how Jesus must have felt when he came on the scene of this funeral procession that was going on. Okay? Now, you have to understand, Jesus is God, but he's also man. Okay? So in other words, Jesus got tired just like we get tired today. All right? So, 25 miles apart from where he left from to where he's at right now. But yet, although he may be tired, he still decided to do something about what he saw. See, I'm so glad that I serve a God that God is able to do something about what we are going through. And right now, you do know that God does not get tired. Here in the text, because he came down from heaven on earth as a man, he may have been tired from the journey that he took to get there, but we serve a God right now who does not get tired. So if you are in need of something, he's not too tired to help you out. He's not too tired to get involved in your situation. He's not too tired to provide a miracle just for you. Oh, I'm so glad I serve a God that never gets tired, that he sees what I'm going through and he can meet the need that I have. Here in the text, also, Jesus, he has compassion on this woman, this widow woman. You have to understand biblical times as far as why this is so important here, of why Jesus had compassion on her. The text is clear. She's a widow, meaning that she does not have a husband. And the text is also clear. This is her only son. No husband, no more sons. Husband gone, son gone. Biblical times, when a widow woman did not have her husband or sons to take care of them, they were felt unprotected. Okay? They were unprotected. It was hard for them to really provide for themselves. It was just the times in those days. So being that Jesus sees this and he knows this, okay, she has no husband. Her son is now gone. She's unprotected. She cannot provide for herself right now. I need to have compassion for her. I do have compassion for her. That's the way God is, Grace Center. God has compassion for us. When he understands our conditions and our circumstances and situations, he's able to have compassion and empathy for what we are going through. Jesus, he saw the woman weeping over the death of her son. Jesus, he comes up to her, Grace Center, and he tells her not to weep. Yeah, in other words, don't cry. Don't weep and don't cry. So here you have a mother who is crying for her only son, which she loved. She loved her son. She's going to miss her son, but she'll never see her son alive again. And then Jesus comes up and he tells her, don't weep. Don't cry. Now, she's going to miss her son. It's her only son. She's weeping. She's grieving. Okay, she's in mourning at this time. And then Jesus comes on the scene and tells her, don't weep. She's in pain. She's in agony. She doesn't know what she is going to do. She doesn't know how it's going to turn out, how she's going to provide for herself. She doesn't know what's going to take place next. So a lot of things are going through her mind. But Jesus comes on the scene and he says, don't weep and do not cry. You see, if Jesus wasn't Jesus, and if he was someone else saying don't weep or don't cry, you would think that he was insensitive. You would think that he was callous. You would think that he's just being plain old rude. But since he's Jesus, great sinner, he can come on the scene and he can say, don't weep. He could come on the scene and see her mourning and he can say, don't cry. If this was somebody else that had come on the scene and saw her mourning for her only son, she was a widow. She was in agony. She was in pain. She was grieving. If somebody else came on the scene and told her, stop crying, stop weeping, it would seem to be insensitive. It would seem like they was callous about what she was going through. But Jesus is Jesus. So he can say, you don't have to weep. You do not have to cry. And Jesus can say that because he is Jesus. So you can say don't weep when you have the power to ease the pain. You can say don't weep when you can turn a negative into something that's positive. You can say don't weep when you know things can change at any moment for the better. You can say don't weep when you know that you are also God in the flesh. He came to the woman and he said, don't weep. After he told her not to weep, great sinner, he then turned his attention to her situation. He told her not to weep. Then he turned his attention to her situation. In other words, I cannot tell you do not weep if I do not do something about the weeping. It's no need for me to tell you don't weep if I don't do something about why you're weeping in the first place. Jesus, he turned his attention to the situation at hand that was causing her to weep. And the Bible says in verse number 14, let's look at it again. Verse 14, it says, and he came and touched the bier, and they that bare him stood still. And he said, young man, I say unto thee, arise. So now you have Jesus stopping this processional from going forth. Now here, what you have here in the text, you have two sets of crowds, okay? You have the crowd that came with Jesus, okay? And you also have the crowd that's attending the funeral, okay? Two sets of crowds here at the same time. You have the crowd that came with Jesus, and you have the crowd that came and they were attending the funeral. So in other words, both crowds are about to witness a miracle. The crowd that came with Jesus and the crowd that's attending the funeral. Two sets of crowds here, and they're all about to witness a miracle. No one can say it didn't happen. No one can say it is not true. Because, watch this, you are about to have two sets of witnesses on both ends. Now, if one party, if one crowd showed up, and if the miracle took place, the other crowd may not believe it. Vice versa. But here you have two sets of crowds that are coming, and they are about to witness and to see a miracle. You see, sometimes, grace and when God does something, he wants to make sure that there are some witnesses. He wants to make sure that someone can go back and tell everyone what just took place. Now, back in those days, they did not have smartphones or camcorders or anything like that. So in other words, they're about to witness something for their own selves, and they would have to go back and tell someone what just took place. Okay? They're about to witness a miracle take place here in the text. Jesus goes up, he touches the bier or the coffin, okay? And he started to speak to the young man. Okay. Jesus, he sees what's happening. He sees what's going on. He stops the processional. He touches the bier of where the man is at, or the coffin, and he began to speak to the young man. Okay, hold on. Time out. Okay. The young man, we said earlier, is dead. But yet you have Jesus speaking to something that's dead. Okay. Is Jesus going crazy? Is Jesus losing his mind? The young man is dead. That's why the mother is weeping, because her son is dead. But yet Jesus, he sees this going on, and he touches the coffin, and he begins to speak to the young man, but the young man is dead. No pulse, no heartbeat, no movement of his limbs, no blood running through his veins, no breath in his body. But yet Jesus began to speak to something that is dead. Now, if you have been a part of the Grace Center for any amount of time, you know that we don't believe that you can just speak anything and it just manifests itself. No, that's wrong theology. Just speaking any old thing. Oh yeah, I decree and decree this gonna happen, that's gonna happen. You can't just speak anything, okay, and it's just gonna happen. No, there are a lot of different factors that come into play. The will of God, how you're living, a lot of different things that come into play. We don't have time to go all of that today. Okay. But you can't just say anything and it just takes place. At the same time, there is power in what you say. All right? You can't just say anything and it comes to pass, okay? Because some things are just in the will of God, all right? But there is power in what you say. There is power in what you believe. Here in the text, the young man has no movement. He has no life. And the young man is dead here. But yet, if you speak to something that is dead and it has no movement, things are not going according to plan. If it's in the will of God, you can speak power to it. And if it's in God's will, I believe that what was dead can now come back to life. And if you have something that you think may be dead, before you bury it, before you call up everyone to come to the funeral, how about you try speaking to it? How about you try speaking to something that you thought was dead? No, it's no need to write the obituary. It's no need to call up everyone and say, hey, I'm going to have a funeral for this situation over here. No, how about you try speaking to something that you thought was dead? Here in the text here, you have the living speaking to the dead. In other words, you have life speaking to death. Oh, you have life speaking to death. Oh, Grace Center, he showed us his pity, but now he's about to show us his power. He touched the coffin and he said, young man, arise. Young man, arise. The Living Bible translation say he said, come back to life in the Living Bible translation. See, some of us need some things to come back to life. You already buried it. You already put it away, but now you really need it for it to come back to life. You put it on the top shelf, you put it away. He says, no need for me to go after that anymore. There are certain things that Jesus sees, and he wants you to speak to it, and he wants that to come back to life again. Verse 15 here, and I'm almost done. If you have joined us late, go and get your bread and your crackers and your juice ready. We're going to have communion in a few moments here. Verse 15 in the text, it says that the boy, he sat up and he began to speak. Jesus saw the funeral procession going on. He stopped the coffin. He spoke to the young man. He said, arise and come back to life. And then the young man sat up. He began to speak. In other words, what was dead is no longer dead. You see, Grace Center, things that you thought was dead can now be raised back from the dead. Marriages, back from the dead. Finances, back from the dead. Businesses, back from the dead. Careers, back from the dead. Relationships, back from the dead. Your mindset, back from the dead. I'm believing that whatever you thought was dead is able to come back to life once again. But Grace Center, the story doesn't end there. But wait, there's more. Also in verse number 15, Jesus gave the son back to the mother. Okay, don't miss that. Don't miss that right there. Jesus gave the son back to the mother. The mother didn't go to the son, but Jesus gave the son back to the mother. Some of you need the touch of God so bad, and God is saying that if you allow me to touch it first, if you allow me to touch it first, I promise you, I'm going to give it back to you again. I like that right there. He said, just allow me to touch it first. And if you allow me to touch it first, I promise you, I'm going to give it back to you again. Grace Center, allow God to touch what you thought was dead. And when you allow him to place his hands on it, he said, you know what? What you thought was dead, I'm going to touch it. But here I am, being God again, being who I am. I'm going to give it back to you once again. The woman here, she received her son back. But not only that, in this story, after the boy was brought back to life, the people, the two sets of crowds, they were shocked. The Bible said that fear fell on all the people. They could not believe what they had just witnessed. They said Jesus was a prophet, but he was more than a prophet, Grace Center. He was the Son of God. He is the Son of God. But after they witnessed it, what did they do? Same thing that the lady did last week from the message. After she was healed, she gave God glory. Here in the text, when they saw what took place, they gave God glory. It's something about giving God glory, Grace Center. It's something about just praising him despite what is happening. But when he does something for you, you have to give him the glory that he deserves. They saw something that they never saw before. They witnessed something they never witnessed before. And after they saw this miracle, they gave God the glory. They gave him the biggest shout. They gave him one of the most amazing type of dances, I'm sure. They gave God the glory in which he deserved. Grace Center, when God does something for you, can we please somebody give him the glory? Can somebody just type in the comment section, give him the glory? I know you're going through something right now, but give him the glory. I know a lot of things are on your mind, but please give him the glory. When God does something for you, please give him the glory. I felt that right there. The boy was resurrected. After they saw what took place, they gave Jesus the glory. Because I've never seen anything like this take place before. We serve a God, Grace Center, that he's able to do things that we never seen take place before. I don't care. You can tell me something that you're going through today, but I'm telling you right now that whatever it is, God is able to do something about it. I don't care how long it's been. I don't care how dark it may even look or appear to be. We serve a God that sits high and looks low, and he will never turn his back on us and walk in the opposite direction. But when he sees something that we are in need of, he can do something about what we need. I said the same thing last week, Grace Center. It's the same thread that I'm talking about today. Jesus saw what was happening. He did something about what he saw. This widow woman who was unprotected now, no way to make money for herself, to provide for herself. Jesus saw that, and he had compassion on her. Grace Center, God, he sees what you're going through. He knows what you're going through. And he can do something about what he sees. I know you may be saying, well, Pastor, it's been years, it's been months, it's been a long time. It seems like nothing is moving. Yeah, I hear you, Pastor, but when? Well, I'm not God. I don't have that answer for you. My only answer for you is this. Just be still and wait on God. Don't give up on God. Don't turn your back on God right now. I know this message is for someone on today. You're saying, well, Pastor, a lot of things is happening. The walls are caving in. It gets darker and darker each day. God is able to do something about what he sees in your life. Hang on to his unchanging hand. If he did it for this widow woman by having compassion on her, by having empathy for her, he's no favor of persons. If he could do something for her, he could do something for you. Her situation that she was going through, it was dead. But Jesus saw it, and he resurrected it, and he brought it back to life again. Whatever you're going through, it may seem like there is no way it can be resurrected. It seems like it is gone. It seems like there is no way in the world I'll ever be able to get it back again. God is saying, just give it to me. Let me touch it. And when I touch it, I'm going to give it back to you again. He raised her son back from the dead. If something is dead in your lives, we serve a God that is able to touch it and bring it back from the dead.